hello.
Hello. Hi.
I'm Missy.
And I'm April.
And we are here with our podcast, Sheela Na Gig. Sheela, Sheela, Sheela Na Gig. Sheela, Sheela, Sheela Na Gig. Sheela, Sheela, Sheela Na Gig. So we're very excited that you're joining us once again. Our podcast that empowers women who maybe been looked over a little bit in history and need a little props, right?
Absolutely. We want to pull those hidden Sheelas out of the shadows and into the limelight.
That's right. That's right. So, how are you, by the way?
I am doing well, thank you.
Yeah. Last time we were talking about your mom. April's mom passed, and that was tough. And moving through that.
We are moving through that, and we're looking forward to burying her ashes alongside my father's ashes.
Oh, that would be good. In Vegas, right?
In Vegas.
Oh, that would be really good. Yeah. It's hard. It's very difficult as a woman to lose your mom. I lost my mom when I was 26, and she was 56. And it's just like, even no matter what your relationship is, there's just this little part. There's just this little part that you lose in a way or something. It's hard to explain, you know what I mean? But it's and my relationship with my mom was complicated, as was yours.
Yes, and 56 was a very young age to have your life end, and you've just had an interesting birthday.
I just turned 56, everybody. Yeah.
And how was that?
Well, it was interesting to really be like, oh my gosh, this is how old my mom was when she died. She was so young. Mm-hmm. You know, it really, really hit me. It really dawned on me. I was in Hawaii, which was amazing. It was a great place to spend it. And I do keep having this feeling, and I may have said this before, like I feel like I really need to make this birthday or this year count for the year my mom never got. I remember celebrating her 56th birthday with her. She was in the hospital. And I remember my boyfriend and I had balloons and flowers and gifts, and we went to the hospital, and I sat next to her in her bed, and we hung out, and I brought a chocolate cake, and we celebrated, but it was tough. She was in the hospital, And I, on the other hand, was in Hawaii with my family, and
your birthday wins.
Yeah, I know. Exactly, my birthday wins. It's true. So so I mean, it'll be an interesting year. We'll see what that looks like, and yeah. But how are your children? Are they good?
My children are good. Yep.
Yeah. Everyone's doing good. Yeah, my son just turned 18. That's been a really interesting hurdle. I remember being so... That was my dog, by the way. Just I think my dog has a hairball. But I remember being so excited to turn 18, so excited to drive. And my son, not excited to drive, when he turned 16. Not excited. He's still not driving. Not excited to turn 18. He really felt like he should be in a different place in life. Like he's, just... Yeah. So he's been a very high concept thinker, feeler. So we're moving through that.
Good. Well, my children were a little too eager to drive at age 16. And my son is obsessed with cars, and he's in the process of starting his own detailing business.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, good for him. It's his thing.
He's 20.
Yeah, and our kids have some similarities, our sons.
They do. They march to the beat of their own drum.
They do. That's right. So my son is getting ready to take the high set, which has replaced the California High School Proficiency Exam, which he took last spring, and he passed the English but did not pass the math.
Okay.
So he's been back at school, and now he's going to take it again. So
as long as he doesn't ask me for any math help, we're good. Yeah,
he's asking my husband. My husband was a math major, so that's good.
That works.
I'm just praying that he passes, and I'm just glad that, because I was ready to turn 18, and he'd be like, oh, forget it. I'm just going to drop out. I'm 18 now, but he wants to take it still, so I'm very encouraged by that. And he's a brilliant artist, and we just gotta let our kids find their way, right?
Absolutely.
Right. It's just it's different than when we were younger, and
that's for sure.
Yeah, it is. It's different, and I'm just glad because I think about me at his age, I was wild. I was freaking wild.
No,
I was.
We are so surprised.
If you were a little wild too, April.
I was quieter in my wildness. You were not quiet in
I was
your
not
wildness.
quiet. No, it's true. But like I was, like I started drinking I think when I was 12. Like I honestly, like I was partying, I was sexually active. I had a boyfriend who was 7 years older than I was. Like I was like visiting the Detroit rock scene with, music scene with my fake ID. I mean, I just look and I think...
Did this contribute to... No, that was a terrible thing to say. I was going to ask if that contributed to your mother's early decline.
It probably did. I think back and I'm like, oh man, payback's our bitch. But my poor mother. I really did give her a run for her money. Both my parents and my aunt too, who took me in at 15. So I just think like, my husband was kind of a late bloomer. I'm glad my son is kind of a late bloomer. My son is not like drinking and being crazy and doing drugs or smoking pot. He's not. I don't think he's ever really had a real girlfriend. Like, he's just doing his own thing.
Take his time.
And that's okay. That's okay. I'm very happy. He's got good friends. I like his friends, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're all good.
We're
all good.
All right.
But I think April is going to tell us about a Sheela today. Somebody very exciting. I'm looking.
No peeking. No
peeking. I know because I told her we were talking earlier today, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited to find out who your Sheela is. It's like this is very exciting. So, who is your Sheela?
Well,
April.
If my Sheela was better known, she might be known as the woman who saved the U.S. space race in the 1950s.
What?
But she's not very well known, hence she's my Sheela for today.
Woo! All right.
Yes.
What's her name?
Mary Sherman Morgan.
Mary Sherman Morgan. Okay.
And
love it.
Mary Sherman Morgan was born on November 4th, 1921, and she happened to have been the second youngest of 6 siblings, born to Michael and Dorothy Sherman in a farm in Ray, North Dakota.
Okay.
And it turns out the Shermans were very, very poor.
Oh.
And when Mary was born on this farm, her parents envisioned her being a farmhand. And so they immediately, from the time she could walk, gave her chores. And she was working that farm till age 9. And guess what happened at age 9? It's kind of interesting.
She got polio?
No.
Oh. Okay, good.
Social services came knocking on the Sherman door and said to her father, Michael, dude, your daughter belongs in school, not working on the farm. She had had 0 education.
That's crazy.
Yep.
She had never been to school?
Never. Nope. Zilch.
Oh my gosh.
They didn't teach her on the, they didn't homeschool. This wasn't a homeschool program. This was a child labor.
Wait, and she was 9 at this point?
Yeah, 9.
So it took until she was 9, plus she had 5 other siblings.
Yep.
For them to come knocking at the door.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, not only did the social worker threaten to arrest her father if they didn't start sending her to school, but guess, you would not could believe this, because this would never happen today. The social services gave her horseback riding lessons and a horse so that she, at 9 years old, could get up on her horse and go to the one-room schoolroom so that she could attend high school. Are you
kidding me?
Nope.
Now, what about her siblings? Do you know about them?
That's a really good question. I presume that they did go to school because...
Did they all get a horse?
I don't know. I actually don't know. I don't know the age gap because she was the second youngest, so maybe her siblings already were older. Not sure. Those are all good questions. But she went to school for the first time by horse on her own volition.
That's amazing.
It's kind of amazing. At 9, and she ended up now. Granted, I don't know how big this school is, but she did graduate valedictorian.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
That's amazing that she was able to catch up.
Yeah.
And not only catch up, but became valedictorian.
Oh, but wait, there's more.
Okay.
So she actually won a full scholarship to DeSales College in Toledo, Ohio, to study chemistry.
Ooh, okay.
But in order to do that, she had to run away from home, because her parents weren't letting her go to college.
They were probably like, all right, done with school now. Time to get back on the farm.
So
Exactly. Get on the tractor. Oh my God, that's terrible.
Yep.
That is terrible.
She ran away and she lived in secret with her estranged aunt in Toledo.
Oh my gosh. Have you ever been to Toledo, by the way?
No, I've never been. Have you been?
Oh, yes. Well, I'm from Detroit, so...
Oh, right.
And my band used to play in Toledo frequently. It's only about an hour away from Detroit. And there was this club we used to play called Frankie's on the main drag. But my favorite thing about Toledo, Ohio, and this just kind of encapsulates... I love Toledo, Ohio. But I remember it was just very funny because on the main drag, like right up the street from Frankie's, there was this place, and it was heating, cooling, and taxidermy.
Of
and
course.
so and it was always like nighttime when we went there, so we would we'd been like doing our gig and we'd been drinking and we'd like run down to look at heating and cooling and taxidermy, and just so we could like look in, and it would have like heaters and like washer and dryers, but then it would have all these like weird taxidermy animals amidst the appliances just kind of staring at you.
I always think heating,
cooling and taxidermy. Well, they go hand in hand,
of course,
obviously.
Well,
but
cooling and taxidermy I can get. Heating, not so much.
Yeah. Well, I digress, but I cannot hear the word, like I cannot hear the name Toledo, Ohio without thinking of that. So
well, that does make a measure of sense. Yep.
Pray do continue. Sorry about that.
No, absolutely.
So she's estranged aunt, though, estranged from the family.
Estranged from the family, so which was good for Mary because Mary wasn't going to get caught by this aunt that nobody knew where they were. And
Francis? That was my dog.
That was our dog, yeah. Missy's dog. I think of him as our dog.
He kind of is our dog. He is our dog. My other dog was like walking around earlier. You could hear her nails. Like she needs a nail trim. She's kind of old. So there's a lot of exciting action here.
Yep, never a dull
my
moment.
House. Okay, so estranged aunt. So I'm just thinking like probably she wasn't in touch with the family, but she was in touch with Mary, and she was probably this cool progressive aunt who wasn't working on the farm, obviously.
Not working on the farm. Nope.
And probably supported the fact that, Mary had gotten a scholarship. Thank God, right?
Yep.
Like she had some support and she knew to reach out to this aunt, so that's awesome.
Yeah,
okay.
That was true.
Okay.
So Mary goes to school in Toledo and living with this estranged aunt, and the Second World War breaks out. And a couple things were going on. The state... all the guys went off to war, right?
Right.
Which left a deficit of eligible, qualified people who know chemistry,
right.
who could work,
right.
Right. And Mary was broke. She had no money. So this local recruiter actually finds out that Mary knows some chemistry, and he offers her a job in a factory at Sandusky, Ohio. And he won't tell her what the job is about, like what she'd be doing, because it was top secret. And it turns out that...
So this was after college?
No. This is during college.
During college.
Yep.
And she goes over to Sandusky.
Yep.
And gets this job, but he won't tell her what it is.
Right. It's top secret.
Okay.
And it has to do with the war.
Okay.
And when Mary decided to drop out of college, which was a big decision, but there was...
So she got offered the job, she decides to drop out of college. Because obviously Toledo is not that close to Sandusky. Sandusky is where Cedar Point is, by the way.
Oh, good to know.
Mm-hmm, good to know.
It turns out that she goes to work for the Plum Brook Ordnance Works Munitions Factory, and where she was going to make explosives for the war. And in fact, this factory produced more than 1 billion pounds of explosive, all for World War II. But what's really important to understand about Mary, our friend Mary, is she really took to heart the secret nature of the work she was doing. And she really learned how to zip her lips. And might I say, she never opened them again. She was very, very quiet about her work.
Which is why she never got recognized, probably.
Well, we will get there.
No, I'm sorry, yes.
But so she's working away, and in 1943, she becomes pregnant. And back in those days, it was extremely shameful for women.
By who?
We don't know.
Pray you tell.
You know when I said she doesn't talk? That is unknown to this day.
Wow.
Yeah, we don't know
Very
where she
progressive.
got that. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
And she, although a lot of women were given back alley abortions or they were hidden away from her friends and family, Mary went to live with a first cousin, Mary Hibbard, in Huron, Ohio, and she gave birth to a daughter. And she named her daughter Mary G. Sherman, but she ended up offering up for adoption to her cousin and her husband, the child, and the girl was renamed Ruth Astor.
Okay.
And so after Mary had gone back to her job and had spent years during the war designing explosives for the military, she applied for a new job at North American Aviation, which was employed by none other than Rocketdyne Division here in Canoga Park, California.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so she came west. And I wonder if part of that change had to do with the fact that she needed distance from her daughter.
I'm sure. That must have been so hard. I can't even imagine. I mean, very admirable that, she gave it up to adoption. I'm sure her aunt and her uncle were thrilled, but...
These are her cousins.
Sorry, her cousins. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be such a hard decision.
It turns out that Mary had, between her aunt and her cousins, and I don't know if they're related or not, she had some very supportive extended family, because the family back on the farm were definitely, looking at her for labor. So anyway, when she got to Rocketdyne, she was promoted to the role of theoretical performance specialist, and it required that she mathematically calculate the expected performance of new rocket propellants. Yeah, not a little feat. And this was really important to her future success.
Yeah.
And out of 900 engineers, Mary was not only the only woman, but the only employee without a college degree.
That is sick.
And
go Mary.
And while those two factors were a main source of prejudice, over the course of her work at Rocketdyne, she did get promoted, and she was recognized as an explosive expert.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's kind of cool. Like, what do you do? Well, she doesn't talk about it. But
she doesn't talk about
I'm
it.
an explosives expert. That's pretty rad.
Like, that would be a great job title if you were going to brag.
Yeah,
But she wasn't much of a bragger.
Yeah.
So while she was working at North American Aviation, a.k.a. Rocketdyne, she met her future husband, George Richard Morgan, and he was a mechanical engineer, and he graduated from Caltech, and he also worked at North American Aviation, and his nickname was Red. They called him Red Morgan. Hey, Red, come here.
Probably a red hair, right?
I would imagine.
Yeah.
And together they had 4 children, George, Stephen, Monica, and Karen.
Nice.
So before I continue with Mary and her story, we need to just sort of backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
Okay?
Backtrack. Okay.
A little bit. So in 1957, if you'll recall, the Soviet Union and the United States had set a goal of placing satellites into Earth's orbit as part of this worldwide scientific project known as the International Geophysical Year. Yay!
Yeah.
And in this endeavor, the United States effort was called Project Vanguard, and the Soviet Union's was called Sputnik. And guess who won the race to space?
Mm-hmm.
In October 4th, 1957, the Soviets successfully launched the Sputnik satellite. And that was very soon followed up by a very public and disastrous explosion of the Vanguard rocket.
Yes.
So until this point, U.S. had been really moving along the assumption that we were more technically advanced than Russia, and we were leading the race. And when this very humiliating failure happened, Sputnik orbited for 21 days and showcased its success. And then in less than a month, Sputnik 2 launched. And under extreme political pressure, the U.S. was forced to allow former German rocket scientist Wernhner von Braun to prepare his Jupiter C rocket for an orbit flight. But the problem was, and he developed this rocket in Nazi Germany, but at the end of the war, von Braun had to leave Nazi Germany, lest he fall prey to Nazi violence. And so he came to the U.S., and he and his team had put together a rocket, but the propeller was only 93.1% on its way to orbit.
Gotcha.
So close, but no cigar. So the U.S. decided to seek out our Sheela, Mary Morgan, because of her reputation for complex theoretical calculations.
Oh, my gosh.
Only there was one little hitch. She was assigned to lead a group of college interns at North American Aviation's Rocketdyne division, and she was the in-house rocket propeller expert, and all that was great, except there was a problem, and that is she had to design this without altering any of von Braun's design. And all of the people involved in the project felt it was a not achievable mission. It was doomed to failure.
Well, why did she have to? I mean,
that was sort of the conditions of the agreement.
Okay.
And it was her assignment.
Okay.
And so she was determined to do it, but they felt that it was a project that was set up for failure. And she put her expertise to it, and it resulted in the birth of a new propellant called Hydyne. And it was actually called Hydyne LOX, LOX, for liquid oxygen. And that was the fuel combination was used for this Redstone rocket that she had created.
Okay.
And she wanted to name the new formulation Bagels, since the rocket propellant combined with the liquid oxygen would have been Bagels and LOX.
Oh, she's clever too.
She is clever, however. The U.S. Army said absolutely not.
Oh,
they didn't
no
buy the
sense
bagel.
of humor.
Nah,
No sense of humor.
But Mary wasn't seeking praise or attention for her invention, and she actually averted one opportunity for fame when an interviewer or a journalist sneaked into Rocketdyne and wanted to interview her, and she snuck out, so she wouldn't even talk to him. So the press coverage...
Tight-lipped, as you said.
Yeah. So anyway, von Braun was widely celebrated as the inventor of the rocket that launched the first U.S. satellite into space.
And no mention...
Not only could
Mary.
he have not done it without Mary's fuel, but almost nobody knew about her and heard about her. Now, I will say part of it was her own unwillingness to be a focal point, and she didn't want attention. She really understood that her role was top secret. But this story isn't quite over. It gets interesting.
Yes.
Mary, at age 82 in 2004, died of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, combined with emphysema, on August 4th. And despite her having quit her very heavy smoking habit for Lent 29 years earlier.
Oh.
And her son didn't really know that she was a rocket scientist.
What?
Despite his own enthusiasms for rockets, as a boy, her son George remained completely in the dark over his mother's accomplishments.
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy.
Yep, and until around age 14, his father, who also worked at North American Aviation, slipped an offhanded comment into a conversation and kind of said, your mother invented the rocket fuel that launched America's first satellite, right?
That's crazy.
In fact, his mother...
How about modest?
I know. His mother was so good at keeping secrets from her children that it was not until after her death that news emerged they had a half-sister born out of wedlock during the war.
Oh.
Yes. But because of this celebrityism, when she did pass away, George tried to write her obituary in the Los Angeles Times, but there wasn't enough of a paper trail to prove her existence and to prove the facts, and the newspaper refused to print the obituary.
Oh.
The newspaper felt that there wasn't enough of evidence on paper that she even existed.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
And George knew very little about his mother's career, so he created a blog to learn more and collect as much information as he could. He made it his mission. And he's quoted as saying, given his childhood passion for rockets, that if I had known how much expertise in rocketry my mother had, we could have asked her for help and saved ourselves a good deal of trouble when he was a kid.
Oh God.
But there's some nice little silver linings.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
After compiling information about his mother over years, Mary became the subject of a semi-biographical stage play that was written by George, called Rocket Girl. And it was produced by the Theater Arts at California Institute of Technology, otherwise known as Caltech,
Oh,
in
that's
Pasadena.
cool. That's really cool.
And
do you know when that was?
September 17th, 2008.
Okay, so fairly recently.
Fairly recently, and her son admitted that it was particularly hard to source information because of the secrecy of the space race and the Cold War and his mother.
Right.
And the George's play was later turned into a book by the same name, Rocket Girl.
Yeah, that rings a bell. Like, I feel like I've heard of Rocket Girl before.
Yeah. The book was released in 2013, titled Rocket Girl, and subtitled The Story of Mary Sherman Morgan, America's first female rocket scientist.
Oh, that is awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah, and the reason I think this story really touched me, Missy, is because I work with a lot of very talented women. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are very hesitant to toot their own horns or to take credit for things that they rightfully deserve to take credit.
Right. It's not ladylike.
No, and it's not about the team and an us and a we. And so Mary's story just, it was a small story, but it really touched my heart. Because
it resonates. Totally.
Yeah. I mean, there was von Braun. Yes, I'm a hero.
Wernhner von Braun.
I got that American rocket to orbit. But he really was dependent on Mary's
And it's sad that he didn't say, yes, I did this, but I couldn't have done it without Mary Sherman. Right. You know what I mean? Like, why would he have not said that? And by the way, did she change her name when she married?
She did. Once she was married, she was known as Mary Sherman Morgan.
That's right. You said that. Okay, sorry. My bad. Okay, Mary Sherman Morgan. But yeah, I mean, how hard would it have been for him to just acknowledge that? I guess, like, for men, it was like, they certainly didn't want to have to give, their credit to a woman of all things.
Well, and you have to remember, there were 900 colleagues of hers. I mean, professional scientists with their degree. She was the only woman, and she never completed her degree. And yet, she was the rocket fuel expert.
She was Rocket Girl.
Yeah, she was Rocket Girl.
Oh my gosh, that is so rad. I mean, that is rad. It's amazing. And I mean, think if she had never, Child Services had never come to the door and given her that horse,
she'd still be milking cows.
Yeah.
Well, I guess she's gone.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Honestly, I mean, it's remarkable. It is just remarkable.
Yeah.
That but it's just, and it's sad, like that. Through her own tight-lippedness, that she wasn't recognized. You know what I mean? But again, that was something that we were, a lot of women, especially back then. I mean, and even, I remember growing up, it was like, don't be a show-off. Don't be a, you know what I mean?
Don't brag about yourself.
Yeah.
But I do have to acknowledge that it was her son, George, who's really made it a mission to know about his mother and share her with the world.
Thank God. Yay for George.
Yeah.
Yay for George. And I was thinking about Hidden Figures when you were talking about this.
Right.
Such an amazing movie. And again,
that was about female mathematicians at JPL.
Yeah.
In the 50s and 60s who were given no credit. And
and not only that, they were black women. They were women of color.
That's
you know what I mean? And
they were.
That's a remarkable movie. I know it's made from a book. I never read the book. It's bad. But
the point is, it was based on a true story. There are a lot of remarkable women who never got their due.
Right. And, working in the sciences, working as rocket scientists, working, with mathematics, things that are, typically considered, a man's field.
And the other thing is, she came from nothing. She came from poverty. She didn't even attend school until she was 9. She was an unwed mother. How scandalous back then.
Scandalous.
And she went on to have 4 children, a very, very important and influential career, and died with her mouth shut. Very modest
so I'm
life.
assuming this happened, like, she had her kids and she was probably still working at, but they just thought she was going to the office, going to be, a secretary or something.
I think I'm going to have to read George's book to learn a little bit more about her.
I know.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to read George's book too.
Yeah.
I mean,
fill in some of those details.
Yeah. I mean, what a fascinating gal.
Yeah.
Fascinating gal. I love that. I love that you chose her. I love that. And I'm excited to learn more about her. Yeah, like every time, it's like I want to learn more. I always feel like, wait, that was really interesting. Let me learn more, And I hope you guys feel like that too, or you gals feel like that, or everybody who listens to that feels like that you get inspired to kind of, further research some of these people, some of these Sheelas, and to, further research on your own, women who are not given a voice.
Right. And also for women today who are developing and innovating and creating, to not be afraid to own your voice and share it with the world, because the world wants to know.
Yeah. the world wants to know, for sure. Well, thank you for listening today.
Yes, thank you for joining us, and thank you for listening to my Sheela.
Yay! Yay! And always check, you can check out our website where we reference our information. We want to make sure, speaking of credit where credit's due, we have all of that on our website. You can see where we get a lot of our information, and we're so grateful for the people that put it out there, for all the research that's done. That makes our job a lot easier.
Yes, indeed.
Until next time, thank you. Be well. Keep listening.
And send us your Sheelas.
Yeah, send us your Sheelas. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Sheela Na Gig, unabashed in your glow.